Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Urban Scope Podcast. Remember to like and subscribe to the videos. Also, thanks for the continued support as we're trying to grow the channel and grow the podcast. Today is the same. I have a slew of topics, um, music, entertainment, no sports today, just sports and music and entertainment for majority of this podcast today. So I'll first start off with more snub news. Seems like more and more often lately, there's more snubs with the country music circuit as it relates to black artists. Um, this time, well, we covered Beyonce and how she didn't even get any kind of country music consideration, so she didn't even get nominated for anything. Shaboozey was nominated for 2 awards, which was new artist of the year, and then he also got nominated for single of the year, which he unfortunately didn't win any of the awards. So there's a lot of outcry now about him not winning any awards and only having 2 nominations, despite having the hit single out, a bar song, Tipsy, which was went 5 times platinum up to this point and spent 18, or I believe it's 19 now, non-consecutive weeks at number 1. At one point it was 7 weeks at number 1 on the charts for that song. And for him not to win any awards and only get nominated for 2 awards was kind of odd, I think. Also Beyonce too, with her success of her album. I know it's her first album, and most people say, well, you have to put the work in, but if you come up with a piece of work that resonated on the charts and resonated in the sales, it shouldn't matter if your first album or not. Most of the time, the first album is your most classic album, and it would be your most probably rewarding album artistically. Probably not, financially or commercial success wise, but from a standpoint of the artistry, usually your first album is where you put the most effort into, because like I said, you took a long time to put that piece of work together. So all your fresh thoughts are on that album, all your fresh vocals are on that album, and you'll probably never sound the same again after that first album, which rings true to most artists and probably every artist when you think about it. But just to see Beyonce wasn't nominated, on a side note, and for like artists like Luke Bryan to saying, that was saying that she need to ingratiate herself with the culture. It's just not true. There are a lot of artists in every genre who don't ingratiate themselves with the culture or even go to the award shows or perform at them, these award shows, or make any appearances on any kind of platforms for that music genre. So I think it was kind of, it seemed like they wanted Beyonce to pander to the genre just to bring self-awareness to the genre, to kind of clout chase off Beyonce's fame and her fan base, the Beehive and stuff like that. So like I said, Beyonce she doesn't make appearances on hip hop or R&B platforms, yet alone country music, which she just put out one album on. She's made her niche and her fame and her notoriety off the R&B hip hop genre, and she doesn't make appearances. The only thing we really care about is that you put out music and you put out it at an efficient clip, that you put out the music. You put out the music, and that's, sometimes artists just don't do it. Artists like Kendrick Lamar, he'll give you the music, he'll come out for a couple of weeks or maybe a month or so and then disappears, and then we'll get the music again, he comes back. Everyone isn't social like that to ingratiate themselves with the culture, and that's never been Beyonce's nature. But what the inverse of that, I feel like that Shaboozey was ingratiating himself with the culture. He was making appearances at these country music awards and shows, and he was, all out in the community. He came out to Lawrence and performed for a bunch of college students. He made appearances on NBA on TNT when they first for the season opener he performed. He's been everywhere. He's been ingratiating himself, and where did they get him? He still didn't get any kind of uh, notoriety for his accomplishments, whether it just be a single. The album did well as well. So I think a lot of time these genres want us to pander to them, and we don't get anything in return, but they get stuff in return. Like they get maybe a couple of eyeballs from the urban community, to to embrace themselves with the genre. Um, a lot of times, like I said, a lot of people don't realize that country music was black people's. It was one of our favorites at one point. When you go back to a Charlie Pride or Ray Charles, those guys, they put a lot of work into the country music circuit, but somewhere along the lines, we got more into R&B and got more into hip hop and things like that. Even jazz music, we're kind of died down off the jazz music, but we had that as well. And I always compare it to the baseball syndrome. It's a slower feel. It's more slower pace. So a lot of urban kids don't play baseball because, like I said, it's a slower game. It's a little bit more boring than a basketball or football or boxing or something like that. So we kind of shot away from it. But when we shot away from it, it was taken over by rural towns and rural communities that don't always embrace that urban connection when it comes along. And when you think about the aesthetics or the the makeup of a Shaboozey, he's a African American man or a black guy with dreadlocks. As a black person with dreadlocks myself, I can see how somebody can put you in a box and put you in, um, kind of put you, kind of just typecast you to a certain thing. When they see Shaboozey, they probably see a rapper or some kind of R&B singer or something like that. But he's country, like I said, all of the characteristics or classifications of country he has, the instrumentation. He doesn't have drums in his music. The lyrics, the vocal style, the southern twang, so to speak. He's a guy from Virginia, which I always had a problem with the country music twang, that everyone has to sound kind of the same or have some kind of country draw. Most other genres are not like that. Everybody in hip hop doesn't sound the same or have the same dialect or same kind of kind of twang to him. But country music, that's required to be classified as that. And he was on the country music chart, so they can't say he's not country music, despite critics who always say that, well, I don't like that type of music, but it seems like it's only when you talk about a Shaboozey or a Kane Brown, or you talk about, uh, a Beyonce or something like that, then it becomes too urban. It becomes not country music. But when a rap music takes other cultures and races and things like that, we just give them that praise, even though Eminem, he's not considered pure hip hop. Well, he's pure hip hop, but I wouldn't, he has gimmicky type style. So, but we don't say anything about that. We embrace him as a hip hop head. He's been a part of the culture. He stands up for our community and things like that. So that is what really counts. As long as you're not, trying to, use hip hop to get to another platform, like a Tommy Richmond, the guy who did the Million Dollar Baby song. He said, "I'm not hip hop," and then at the Grammys, he didn't get nominated for anything, even though he submitted for hip hop consideration for that single. But that kind of showed you that a lot of time people use that hip hop R&B platform just to get to other places, and they just kind of neglect the hip hop platform like it didn't give them their start. So that's something I'm very passionate about. Just you know, people giving praise where it's due and giving people their just due. Um, like I said, shout out to Shaboozey, and don't let it deter you from being you and making good music. They can't take away what you've done. The only thing they can do is try to smear it, but that won't work because, like I said, you're still on the Billboard charts. You're still a great artist, and you still are country music. Don't let them deter you and try to, distract you from your greatness because you are great, and we appreciate you as a whole. The awards don't mean anything other than people who critics who never done it that want to try to um, trying to pick who's country and who's not. You're our country music, and we appreciate what you've done for the culture. So to switch it up a little bit, just to talk about Ice Cube, he was recently on um, the 85 South Show podcast with DC Young Fly, Chico Bean, and Carlos Miller. And he's Ice Cube right now. He's promoting his new album. He is 55 years old, but I can say I heard the album, Man Down. He didn't miss a beat. It was very good production on the album, very good rapping on the album. He has some nice features on the album as well. Like I said, he's 55, but he's still out here being productive, not only putting out music, but he has his basketball league, the Big Three. He also is still producing movies, and I think he still dabbles in TV shows and things like that. So he's just being a jack of all trade at his age of 50 years old. But nevertheless, he was promoting his album on the 85 South Show podcast, and they brung up The Players Club, which was one of his first movies that he actually directed and starred in. And I believe he wrote on that movie as well. So he kind of talked about Bernie Mac, and they asked him about Bernie Mac, and he said that Bernie Mac, that role, Dollar Bill character, who was the owner of the Gentleman's Club, was written specifically for Bernie Mac. He did allow Bernie Mac to improvise on that album because, like I said, Bernie Mac was a great comedian. He left us too soon at the age of 50, but he was a great comedian who was good at improvising. And that was shown when he was on things like Def Comedy Jam, the way he was able to deliver a joke and the way he was, his diction, the way he just carried himself was just in a professional manner that was very funny at the same time. So he talked about how Bernie Mac was, how iconic Bernie Mac was. And when you have an iconic person or a comedian or actor like Bernie Mac, you allow them to improvise and add stuff, take stuff out of the script because, like I said, they know them best. And when you write a character, it's always open to interpretation for that actor, especially when it's a great one. So, Bernie Mac also played in the movie Friday with Ice Cube as well, where he played the pastor. He was very funny in that movie as well, even though he had a small role. Like I said, Bernie Mac played in a plethora of movies, and like I said, he left us too soon, and I want to see what he would do if he was out now. But he, one of his most rememberable roles, I could say, was probably in the movie Above the Rim with Tupac. He actually played Tupac's brother, and he played like a homeless character, and he was funny in that movie as well, even though he had a small role. It didn't take a big role for Bernie Mac to have a funny character in it. Like when he was in How to Be a Player, he had a small role in that too, but he was funny in there. Like I said, the way he talked and the way he delivered a joke was second to none, in my opinion. And I'll kind of talk about my top 5 comedians probably next week, and I'll discuss my top 5. He's somewhere around the top 5. I'm not sure yet if he's in the top 5, but he's somewhere in that range. But, just hearing Ice Cube talk about Bernie Mac was, it just brings you chills because, like I said, Bernie Mac was iconic. And in my opinion, and I posted a survey on this, who do you think was the funniest character or funniest comedian on the original Kings of Comedy? And by far, it's Bernie Mac to me. I like D.L. Hughley as well, and I think Steve Harvey was funny. All of them was funny on there, but Bernie Mac went last for a reason because, like I said, he's the top guy in his era. He was one of the top comedians. I can't put him above a Eddie Murphy or maybe a Chris Rock or something like that, but it's not too many comedians that's above him, especially in his era. Most people would say a Richard Pryor or, something like that. But nevertheless, I think Bernie Mac, stood the test of time. And, even with his Bernie Mac show that was on TV that was more kid friendly, and he was able to show a different side of himself from the comedy that he used to do. His comedy was very vulgar and was very explicitive, but as he got older, he did the Bernie Mac show, and it showed it a softer side of Bernie Mac. Even though he was kind of harsh on the show and he joked a lot. I mean, it was funny stuff, but he was kind of harsh as a parent. But he always had a soft side to him, and most people didn't see that side of Bernie Mac up until that point. But like I said, most people have two sides, and they're able to flip back and forth. But we didn't see that from a person like Bernie Mac. We only saw the comedy raw side of Bernie Mac. So yeah, it was just a good interview just to be able to Ice Cube. And like I said, Ice Cube's one of the best in the business, whether you're talking about from a director, writer, or actor standpoint. We don't even have to discuss the rapper part. That's how he got started. That's how he got his niche. That's how he got his start in the industry. So that side we don't even have to talk about. Like I said, Ice Cube is one of the best of all time when it comes to rapping. He was in one of the best rap groups of all time. So yeah, so it was nice to see him talk about Bernie Mac. Like I said, I'll do my top 5 comedians sometime next week. I'll probably do a lot of recording next week. So speaking of recording, I want to discuss the Penguin finale and just give an overall reaction to season 1 of the Penguin. Now, I did cover the opener or episode 1 of the Penguins series, and I went into it with no expectations. I went into it with no kind of thoughts about what I thought it would be. I just kind of just started watching and just seeing, just to see if it was worth watching. And it was a very good watch, from overall in the season. Like I said, it had a lot of dry spots because there was a lot of background information that had to be given. And a lot of time in season 1, it's going to be a little bit boring because they're trying to bring the viewer up to speed on the story they're trying to tell. And the Penguin was definitely no different in that we got a lot of background from the Sophia character, the Penguin character, the Penguin's mom's character, even his the Penguin's right hand man's background on his family and what happened to him and how he lost his family. Also, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched the season finale of the Penguin. This podcast will be split into sections, so if you don't want to hear about the Penguin, you can skip to the next section as well. But just to go into it, I thought the season finale was great. It gave us a lot of answers to our questions that I know I had, but I still have some questions. Of course, the season finale is designed to leave questions unanswered for the next season to get you to watch the next season. Because if you get all the answers in the season finale, you're not going to be you're going to be hesitant to watch the next season because you already have the answers. So they left a lot of things blank that some people might have not caught, but I'm trying to see if you caught the same things I caught on the season finale. So the first thing that I kind of recognized about the Penguin, well, all the way throughout the season, was the Penguin was ruthless. He really didn't care who he had to get over to get to where he needed to go to be successful. He didn't care who he had to connive or lie to or kill to get where he needed to. And that was evident throughout the season. So that was no surprise there, right? So that was the first thing. Second thing is he didn't really have a heart. In the season finale, he killed off his right-hand man who was a kid, who he was going to kill episode 1 until the guy, the kid kind of begged him not to do it and he could work for him and he could help him. So he let him do it. So all season he was going around with this guy. When the Penguin went missing, he was frantic and he went in the hospital, helped him out, did all these things. And then when he killed that kid off, it was kind of sad because, like I said, the kid's whole family had died from that incident in Gotham or whatever. So he didn't have anybody. And then he killed that guy off instead of letting him go about his way, which, it was tough to watch that one. And then the situation with his mother, when his mother was, when Sophia had his mother and she threatened to cut her hand off and to kill her, and the Penguin still continued to lie about what happened to his brothers, which the Penguin was responsible for the death of his brothers when he left them in the sewer, and the sewer flooded out, and he lied to his mom about what happened about that. So that was just heartless in itself to see how he did even his own family, his own flesh and blood. So even his so-called goons in the sewer, when Sophia put the vehicle in the sewer and it had a bomb attached to it, he just got himself out of there and then left his guys in there to just die. He didn't give anybody a warning, say, hey, we need to get out or anything. He just left. So they kind of showed the Penguin's character as well. But thinking about back to reality, in the 48 Laws of Power, the book states that isolation can be very dangerous. And that's a question I have for next season. The Penguin kind of isolated himself from everybody. His mom is, in a vegetative state, and he left her out just in there, just left her out cold. And she specifically requested for him not to do that, and he did it anyway. So he isolated himself from his mother. He already had killed his brother and his right-hand man. All of his goons are dead. He has to find a whole new crew. Also, in addition to all of that, he didn't kill Sophia, but he led the police to her. So even she's isolated, she was his enemy anyway. But that led me to believe, question, why didn't he just kill her and he just let her go to the police, because she can put him in the story as well. So it's kind of interesting to see where that storyline goes and what was his thinking as far as that goes, because maybe he wanted her to rot in jail because he knew that was her trauma, and maybe that was more harsh than just letting her go or just killing her. Her spending time in a jail and in a psychiatric ward, as they showed in previous episodes from her background. He knew about that trauma, I believe, in some way, and he wanted to make her suffer like he suffered with his mother. So it's going to be very interesting to see next season where that storyline goes, because, like I said, a lot of things was left unanswered. Where he's going to get a crew from, how is he going to recover, and where he's going to get his supply from. Like, where is everything going? Because they left that unanswered. Like I said, it'll probably be another year or two before we get that, because they are filming the new Batman that came out a couple of years ago. I believe it's due in 2026. So he's going to have to film both of those at the same time and the same character. So he's going to spend a lot of time working on Batman stuff and just being in that makeup, because I know it takes a lot of makeup to get to the character he has as the Penguin. So he's going to have his hands full for about the next 2 years in regards to filming the Penguin show and the Batman the next installation of that series, which was a very long movie. So hopefully the second one doesn't be as long, because maybe there won't be much background into it. And then I want to see what characters will be next on that show, that will appear on that show, because they really didn't show any characters this season. So will they introduce the Joker again? Will they show Bane? Will they show the Riddler? Characters like that, Mr. Freeze, something like that. So it'll make the series a lot interesting. And like I said, with the graphics and CG that they have today, it'll look a lot better from the 90s Batman's era movies. So I definitely want to see what characters, or if they even introduced any characters. This series seems to be real focused on the Penguin and his ascension, or if you look at it that way. Like I said, that show is just, the way it's filmed is just, I think it's because it's HBO. The way it's filmed is very cinematic and very professional, good quality. So even if it wasn't good acting, just the way they shoot the movie or to shoot the show, it's just, it would be great anyway. So, but I would like to see a Bane series like the Penguin, because I want to know more background on him. We don't know much on him other than when he was in Dark Knight Rises and some stuff from the comic books. But they don't, like I said, I would like to know his story. I'm very autobiographical, so I like to know the backgrounds of these characters, even though they're fictional. So, but it'll give you more perspective on who they are and why they are the way they are. So just a thought. So just let me, let me know your thoughts in the comments about the Penguin series and if you like it and what you like to see next season from the series. Speaking of what I like to see next is um, Kendrick Lamar released his new album GNX. It was a surprise release on Friday at I believe it's around 11 o'clock Central Time. When I found out about it, I first seen a YouTube video with just a car on it, and then Kendrick Lamar was rapping in the background. So I'm thinking like, oh, okay, maybe he has a song coming out for the new album that's about to come out. But then like maybe 10 minutes later, I go to X and I see that he dropped the whole album. So then I went to Apple Music and gave it a listen. It's pretty good on first listen. I still have to do some more listening just to get a better analysis of it. But one thing that stood out to most people, the very first song when I listened to it was Whacked Out Murals, which on the song he made reference to Lil Wayne and the current state of his success and the lack of support from his success. And he had this to say in regards to Lil Wayne. He said, used to bump the Carter 3. I held my Rolly chain proud. Irony, I think my hard work let Lil Wayne down. So a lot of people can, perceive this as a diss to Lil Wayne. I didn't see it as a diss to Lil Wayne, but I could understand why Lil Wayne would see it as a diss, just for the simple fact of he said my hard work let Lil Wayne down, and Lil Wayne probably could see that as, wow, you're saying I'm not working hard, or you're trying to say that that I'm looking down on you. But Lil Wayne never had any problems with Kendrick Lamar. It seems like his problems were with Jay-Z and the people who picked the Super Bowl. He never said that Kendrick wasn't deserving of this honor. He only said that he was deserving and he felt like he was snubbed for it. Now, Kendrick can see that as a slight by saying that, why can't you just congratulate me and just keep your feelings to yourself? But as an artist of Lil Wayne's caliber, who's been rapping since he was around 15 or 16, he was actually rapping probably around 11 or 12 years old before Kendrick was. And he's been rapping over 20 something years. That was he probably felt that was his one and only opportunity to get this, and it was in New Orleans, his hometown. So I can see the argument both ways. And I'll get into responses from Lil Wayne and responses from Top Dog, who was the CEO is the CEO of TDE, which Kendrick once was a part of the label and still has a good relationship with Kendrick to this day. But Lil Wayne said in response in a tweet, he said, "Let this John sleep. I beg you all. No one really wants destruction, not even me. But I shall disturb. I shall destroy if disturbed." And Top Dog responded saying, "Dot is a dangerous man right now. Everything I thought he would be at 16 is here right now. Everybody stand down. I promise you." So that was, like I said, it seems like the beef is boiling over. And there is some anticipated response from Lil Wayne and a song. Like I said, Lil Wayne's working on the Carter 3 right now, and I believe he's also working on another album as well. So it's going to get very interesting to see if there's a back and forth, because both guys are pretty busy right now, especially Kendrick, working on a Super Bowl performance and the song selections. And also, it seems like from listening to this GNX album from Kendrick that there will be another album possibly, because this album didn't seem like a Kendrick album that I ever listened to before. It seemed kind of like a mixtape to me, or it seemed like a prelude to something. But there was a lot of samples on this album, so maybe it is a true album. But a lot of people are speculating that this is just the beginning and there's another album before the Super Bowl hits, or maybe on the day of the Super Bowl, similar to what an Usher did last year. And it seems like that might be a growing formula for success going forward. If you do the Super Bowl, you have to drop an album around that time to get more eyeballs and more ears to what you're doing, so to your brand. Like I said, I don't want to see. I'm a fan of Lil Wayne and Kendrick Lamar. I don't want to see a beef between the two artists, but I think it'll be a great battle to see, as long as it stays between the rap lines, because it's West Coast against the South. It's Cash Money versus TDE / PG Lang. So it's going to be a lot of pieces in between, and people going to have to pick sides, and it can get real messy when that happens. Because, like I said, Kendrick is more introverted, and he doesn't get out to a lot of artists, but he is friends with a lot of artists. It's not like he's always out in the public. Lil Wayne is more social and more out there, and more outgoing and more extroverted. So it's going to be interesting to see. But like I said, the Super Bowl is coming up next year in a couple of months, and Kendrick is set to perform there. So let's see if he has actual time to engage in another rap beef, especially coming off the rap beef and success against Drake. So like I said, it's going to be, like I said, I'm not sure. Like, Lil Wayne has never been an artist to beef, and when he does beef, he throws out shots on songs and like a couple of lines or two. He usually doesn't put out or dedicate a whole song or a whole project to dissing someone. It's mostly selective. Like I said, we didn't see much beef with Kendrick up until this Drake situation. So these are not beef artists, but like I said, with the recent transgressions and snubs, they feel like it might be time we see two artists go back and forth like this with upcoming projects. Well, Kendrick just released a project, but Lil Wayne has two projects left, so he has a lot of room for dissing this upcoming year and in the upcoming future. So lastly, I just want to briefly talk about I covered yesterday why I thought The Wire was the best TV show, in my opinion. So when I say TV show, I mean from the perspective of a collective body of work, just a regular TV show, not like a sitcom or like a reality show, because reality shows really weren't prevalent as much back in the 90s, which is why I'm getting to my favorite TV show as far as sitcom wise, because like I said, it's different genres. But if you held my feet to the fire, The Wire would probably still be my favorite TV show over any TV show out there. But I was thinking about my favorite sitcom, and it took me back to the 90s, which I posted a survey of what your favorite 90s show is on that list, which was composed of, I believe, Martin, Fresh Prince, Friends, and another show I can't recall, but Seinfeld. So my favorite TV show in the 90s is hands down is Martin, which, like I said, I was younger when that show came out, but I caught a lot of the reruns. I was able to catch Fresh Prince a little bit live when I was younger, but I caught the tail end of Martin. But I'll always watch the reruns and still own the box set to this day, even though it's on HBO now and I have access to that. But Martin was just a different show. Like, it was during the time of 90s where TV shows and music and movies reigned supreme, even the economy and things like that. Everything was just better in the 90s. That was just the era of the golden years for the United States, I believe. Some people think it's the 80s, but 90s had its run, had its way as well. But Martin separated itself from other shows, I think, just from from improvising. Like I talked about earlier with Bernie Mac, there were a lot of moments on Martin you um, where you could tell they improvised. There was a lot of laughing, a lot of people getting out of character, people trying to stay in character from laughing. Like the Suspicious Minds episode where um, Martin did a reenactment of the New Jack City scene where he had the Rottweiler, and they were walking around, and he was trying to figure out who leaked information in his crew. And it was hilarious, and everybody in that scene was trying not to break character. And I believe that show was a live recording. I do believe. So you had to stay in character, and there were no do-overs. So, or maybe there was do-overs because it was a live studio. It wasn't a live recording. So, yeah, it was just interesting. I mean, not interesting, but it was just funny and a very entertaining time to see a show like Martin being able to um, thrive for as long as it did. It only lasted about 5 seasons due to the tension on the show that I really won't get into. But I think the show could have went a few more years. Like I said, they never had stale writing. None of the shows really were connected except for maybe 2 or 3 episodes that had um, connection to it. All of the shows were kind of like random, random writing, random drama, random storyline. So that gave the show more flavor. And like I said, that was during the time where style was key back then. Everything was originality. Everything was creativity. Now there are a lot of remakes of things, and they even tried to remake Martin, but I don't think it went anywhere. But there are a lot of remakes and a lot of sampling and just a lot of redoing now. But you can't remake the classics like that, especially not with the original characters. And it loses its lust after so many years. But everyone is trying to recreate that magic and trying to replicate it instead of creating new things. Except Martin was one of the first of its kind. It was, I'm not sure if it really took place in Detroit, but that's where the setting was supposed to take place on the show. And a lot of shows were based out of LA and California and maybe even Chicago back then. So Detroit was not a common place, and even to this day where they film sitcoms. So Martin was definitely first of its kind in that way. And it's also, it's still a cult classic in the Black community, similar to the movie Friday and things like that. Those movies and that TV show will always be remembered as a cult classic. Anytime you're feeling down, you can watch the movie Friday, or you can watch the TV show Martin and pick yourself back up and feel better. It's sort of a therapy. It works in the community. So, like I said, Martin's my favorite TV show. I put up the survey. So let me know what your favorite TV show was. It doesn't have to be the 90s, or it doesn't have to be a sitcom. But just let me know what your favorite TV show is in the comments. And remember to like and subscribe to the content. And until then, I'll see you next time.